4 Americans held in Russian prisons. 1. James Vincent Wilgus. Detained since November 2016, Jimmy Wilgus has been dubbed the Forgotten American. His family has launched a campaign for his release. Wilgus is a musician from New Jersey. He was in Russia, working on a movie soundtrack. Ironically, Wilgus is as pro-Russian as they get. He collaborated on a propaganda movie with a Russian director. The movie is called A Miracle in Crimea. He played drums in a Belarusian band. In 2016, Wilgus was grabbed by 4 men in Moscow. They stuffed him into a car and drove him to a police station. On the way there, they beat him up. None of them spoke English. At the station, an interpreter was brought in. He told Wilgus he had to sign a paper in Russian to be let go. Wilgus did, and was immediately thrown in a holding cell. Apparently, the paper was a confession. 18 months later, Wilgus was charged with indecent exposure. The police said he had a long history of minor abuse. He was found guilty and sentenced to 12 years in prison. Since then, he has been held in a prison camp in Mordovia. He has suffered a heart attack, but has been denied treatment. His family in the U.S. says he may die in Russia. 2. Paul Whelan. Detained since December 2018, Whelan is a former U.S. Marine. His 2018 visit to Russia was not his first. Whelan worked as an investigator for an auto part maker, but that particular visit was personal. Whelan was attending a wedding of a fellow ex-Marine. Whelan had previously bragged of being friends with an FSB officer. The man has been identified as Ilya Yatsenko, an FSB major. Yatsenko abruptly turned up at Whelan's hotel, followed by other officers. They arrested Whelan and charged him with espionage. He supposedly received a USB drive containing a list of all the employees at a classified security agency. He was found guilty and sentenced to 16 years. In 2020, Whelan is kept at the same camp as Wilgus. 3. Mark Fogel. Detained since August 2021, Fogel is an English teacher who worked at a Moscow school. He'd lived in the country since 2012. He was planning to retire in 2022. In August 2021, Fogel was arrested in Sheremetyevo Airport. He was returning from a trip to the States. Fogel had 0.6 ounces of medical marijuana on him. It had been prescribed to him to treat chronic pain. But despite the prescription, he was charged with drug trafficking. In 2022, Fogel was sentenced to 14 years in prison. The 61-year-old has no access to health care. His family is campaigning to bring more attention to his case. 4. Evan Gershkovich. Detained since March 2023, Gershkovich became the Wall Street Journal's Russian reporter. In 2022, he worked for a year before being arrested. Gershkovich was meeting a contact in a restaurant. Men in plain clothes grabbed the journalist outside. They pulled his sweater over his head and bundled him into a car. The next day, the FSB made an official statement. Gershkovich had been detained for espionage. Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesman, declared,
"We're not talking about suspicions. He was caught red-handed."
No details or evidence have been provided, but it's likely that Gershkovich's crime was covering the war in Ukraine. He is being held in Moscow's Lefortovo jail. The court rejected his appeal to be released on bail. Russian authorities have made it clear the journalist is a hostage. RIA Novosti, Russia's state media outlet, quoted an anonymous insider.
If the Wall Street Journal continues to engage in non-journalistic activities, publishing misinformation about Russia, this will mean that the editors are not at all interested in the fate of Gershkovich.
This sounds like a mobster's threat, but for Russia, this kind of talk has long become normal.